Now then, you two. Title of the podcast, you've got to throw it in there straight away, haven't you, before we start talking.
Yeah.
But I'm joined with Emily and Tom of Project Overload. So welcome to the podcast, episode 2. We're in.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
No, honestly, thanks for coming down. It's been I've actually been following you for a while, and I've been listening to your album on and off for the past couple of weeks, just trying to sort of break it down in my head. It's a great album, by the way. Just like how it's all been put together. Sounds quality. But just sort of take me back to like how individually you first got into music. Like obviously, Emily, you sing. So like how did you first like come on to singing?
Well, I've always had like a very musical family. Like my dad was a drummer, and he also plays piano. He was in a choir. So like musically, I've got like my dad, and then my sister did musical theatre and singing. She was a singer as well. And then my brother likes to make music on like using, can't remember like the app names, but like just like on those like sort of
there's like production ones, Logic and Ableton,
Logic
that sort
and
of
things
stuff.
like that. So we used to make stuff, and actually we used to make songs together.
Oh, okay.
Like we used to do like some rap battles or like I remember we did one that was like themed of like a nursery rhyme theme and stuff, and like we used them to sort of diss each other. But yeah, so I've always kind of had a very creative family, and then through that I've just found like a love of music, and then I did music GCSEs and enjoyed it there, and then through that I got to do my singing lessons as well. So
okay, cool. So what the singing lessons have come on the back of doing your GCSEs, or is that something that you've done outside of school?
They came on the back of GCSEs because our teacher was like, "We've got these opportunities if you want to sign up for them," and then through the singing lessons they actually joined the band. So
oh, really?
Yeah. So
so it's birthed from school almost. So
basically, yeah.
So were you all friends at school?
No.
No, we actually didn't.
Not friends.
Separate schools, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the entire band, apart from my my brother Lucas, who's our guitarist. We go to the same secondary school, but none of the rest of us in the band were in the same year, even went to the same school when the band was formed.
Yeah.
So, like we didn't really know each other before, and it's this music that sort of brought us together.
Oh, right, of course. So at the time that the band's been formed, then everyone's still at school.
Yes.
So, and because you're at different schools, did you rehearse somewhere, like in a proper rehearsal space somewhere? Because I were in bands at school, but like everyone that was in my band was at the same school, and we had sort of designated rehearsal space at school. So we just used theirs, but obviously you guys weren't.
Yeah, so I mean, this band was started as I think it was a project from Coventry City Council.
Yeah, and Coventry Music.
And Coventry Music,
Right.
And I think they'd taken it upon themselves for the City of Culture in 2021 to make a load of bands full of kids who come 2021 would be kind of 16, 17, 18 and would potentially be the next sort of big thing in the Coventry area.
Yeah.
So I think they just reached out to a load of schools and said, hey guys, we've got this project going on. We'll give you a rehearsal space. We'll basically put you in bands. We'll give you a mentor, and sort of give you guys maybe a 3 or 4 year course on how to work together as a band and how to make music. And so it was really through that we joined together. And so, we did have our own dedicated rehearsal space, but this was all being done outside of school. Like the schools didn't really have much to do with it. It was all a sort of Coventry Music initiative.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that sounds amazing.
6 to 8 every Thursday.
Yeah.
Which is why I was like iffy about joining it because of my GCSEs, but I did it anyway, and glad I did.
Yeah.
It's been really good.
Yeah, so basically ever since the band's formation, it's been 2 hours of practice once a week, more or less every week, apart from COVID, since 2017, I think.
2017?
When we were formed, yeah.
Wow. So you managed to stay a band all that time?
Yeah, it's been a long time,
I joined 2022-ish, I think. Around about, because I was a late joiner though. I've been there for about a year
I suppose you got your head screwed on there, didn't you? Because you wanted to focus on school first and music
Yeah,
after. For a lot of
exactly.
people, it's the other way around.
Yeah, but yeah, I joined it a year after, but it's been really good though, with the band and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just touching on your singing lessons again. So did you know that you could sing before you had lessons, or is everything through those lessons?
Well, I was sort of told by people that I could sing, but it was one of those where like I kind of like thought like, you know, oh yeah, I'm decent, but probably not like amazing at it. And
Yeah.
then my mum kind of wanted me to do the lessons to help with my confidence rather than like get me like really good at singing. She just wanted me to have someone else tell me that, you know, you can sing.
Yeah.
And then through that, obviously, I've joined the band and I've had a lot more people say I can sing. So there must be something there. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, you can tell obviously on the record that you know the talent's there, not just from you, but you know from all your bandmates.
Yeah.
I'll touch on the record in a bit, but I just want to talk to you, Tom, about how you got started. Because obviously the guitar is not one of those things that you can just like sort of singing. Anyone can just belt out a tune kind of thing. Obviously you've got to have that passion to hone it. But a guitar, you have to really sit down and go, I want to learn how to play this.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say the way that I got into playing guitar was slightly more traditional. It started with lessons in primary school. So
Okay.
I think it was as early as year 2 or year 3
Oh,
that
wow, that's really early.
that I started my guitar lessons. I did them with a friend of mine, which made me sort of want to keep going. And while I was at primary school, one of the teachers, I think it was when I was in year 4, he decided to start a school band because there was people having drum lessons, people having singing lessons, and people having guitar lessons. So his idea was, well, why don't we form a band and have them play, sort of less traditional music. So, I mean, at school, I don't know, you might have a choir or you might have something similar to that. But we kind of played rock music. We played stuff like, Rockin' All Over the World, Wonderwall.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first experience of being in a band in kind of year 4. And I was, really hooked by that. So, I continued my guitar lessons until year 6. And then I think it was in year 8, actually, when I joined Project Overload. And I've been a part of the band ever since, really.
Wow,
So,
amazing. I can't believe how like early that started for you.
yeah.
Mine was I first picked the guitar up when I was maybe 10, probably 11. But mine was very like, I had lessons outside of school. It was every fortnight, if I remember right. On a Saturday morning, there were a guy who lived not far away from me who was an amazing guitarist, and he taught me. But I learned with like proper music theory. So like, did your lessons include that, or is yours just this is where your fingers go?
I mean, it was sort of tablature based. I know that for playing the piano and stuff, you have to read
Notation,
yeah,
kind
notation,
of thing, yeah.
Yeah. But since I kind of stopped at year 6, I didn't continue lessons after that, so I didn't really get into the music theory side of things.
Yeah.
So I guess when we're writing music and stuff, I think would I be right in saying that we're not, I don't think any of us sort of really have any sort of clue about music theory or anything.
Oh no, like you never write notes. We just record it. Like we always just use voice notes because we don't actually have chords and things written down. You just sort of know it. You're like, okay, we're gonna do this thing. You'll play it, we'll record it, and then you'll just be able to go home and listen to it. We never actually write it down.
Yeah. If it sounds good, then it must be working.
Yeah.
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 And,
yeah.
Sorry,
interrupted you.
Yeah. I think my brother's starting to get into the sort of music theory side of things because I think he wants to pursue music as a career.
Right.
So he out of all of us has the most sort of music theory. And bearing in mind he's 15.
Yeah.
So he's still very young and still has this level of music theory that kind of we don't have.
So he's the brains then.
Yeah, music theory wise.
Yeah, he's able to come up with stuff, and I'm like, that's first of all that's pretty good. Second of all, like he's kind of come up with it instantly.
Yeah.
I don't let him know this, obviously, but It is actually quite impressive, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, sort of age 15, I'd argue would be a really, really good age to start sort of learning music theory as a guitar player, because you probably already know how to play anyway. You understand that an A is, sort of where it is, and an E, and your strings and stuff. Then, like, learning where the notes are on all the other strings, and then sort of why they're there and which notes work with what.
Yeah.
That it's great, but a lot of people don't know music theory. A lot of very successful musicians don't know music theory, so it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
Like I said a minute ago, it's if it sounds good, then it must be all right. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great that he's learning, but at the same time, you've got to get out there and do it. And that's how it is, isn't it? But yeah. So you've obviously picked up your sort of respective instruments quite early on. So before you'd done that, like what were your influences? Like, what sort of bands or music would you say you've gravitated towards after you've learned how to play your instruments?
Do you want to answer that?
I mean, when I was singing, I know when I was little, I kind of gravitated towards whatever, because I'm the youngest sibling, so I kind of gravitated towards whatever my older siblings were kind of listening to or playing.
Yeah.
So, because my sister was into a lot of musical theatre, I say starting out, I used to like sing a lot of musical theatre songs like her. I remember one time I did a talent show and I sung an Annie song and stuff like that. So I think as I've gotten older, I'd say I probably sort of gravitate towards younger female singers that are like up and coming. So I'd say like Sabrina Carpenter is one person that I like to like sort of look up to, and like her music I just enjoy it. So I'd say she kind of is someone who I look at. But I also enjoy postmodern jukebox
Right.
and like the sort of covers they do, and like the kind of jazzy style that they do, and sort of just like with the belting. I kind of really like to explore that. I remember in music GCSE doing a cover of Seven Nation Army, White Stripes, and we were told to do it in a sort of ska reggae style.
Oh, really?
And then, so we did that, but then for the last verse, I kind of took inspo from the postmodern jukebox cover. And like we kind of did this transition where we slowed it down and went into like a jazz thing. So I think, yeah, definitely through that. Obviously, we're quite a, like indie sort of band. I feel like our newer songs have a bit more of like punch and like rock to them.
Yeah.
And I feel like vocally I've sort of stemmed into that whole having a bit more beltiness with the new songs, which I'm excited for.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, great. Because those sorts of people I'd have said are more like pop based, especially Sabrina Carpenter, because she's in the charts and stuff, isn't she now? So it's interesting to hear that you've got like interest in pop, but then there's the like, rockier element as well.
Exactly. I think for me, I kind of like all styles. Like I don't really have like, some people can have like a set genre, like this is what I listen to, and I think for me, I just feel that music is so vast in like how people express themselves and what sounds they choose to sort of make. It's really hard to sort of decide definitively what like I can sort of get inspired by, because like there's so many different styles to sort of look at and get inspiration from.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like not just vocally, but for any instrument. If you delve into a style of music that you're not 100% familiar with, it's only going to make you a better musician. For you to understand sort of what a jazz player might do compared to a rock guitarist, or sort of vice versa. It's what makes a world go around, isn't it? But I'm going to level the same question at you, Tom.
Yeah.
Your influences.
I mean, kind of growing up, it was so. Unlike Emily, I'm actually the oldest sibling, so a lot of my influences have come from my dad.
Yeah.
So he was big into REM, and Blur, and kind of Britpop really. And so growing up, that was mostly what I listened to. But I'd say kind of around my mid-teens, maybe 13, 14, I started listening to Two Door Cinema Club and Catfish and the Bottlemen and kind of rock stuff like that, sort of alternative rock. And I think just because when we wrote some of the songs on the album are actually from back when I was 14, 15 and still listening to that sort of stuff, I feel like you can kind of hear a bit of an undertone of Two Door Cinema Club if you kind of look for it, because that's kind of what I was listening to at that point. But more recently, I've actually got into slow dive and a lot of shoegaze bands, so like Were and My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I think sort of along the lines of what Emily was earlier, I think that's kind of what has given us a bit of a kind of rock sound, because sort of out of everyone in the band, I kind of have it in my head what I want a certain song to sound like.
Yeah.
So we'll come up with the idea, and I'd say I'm sort of the unofficial producer for some of the songs, and I want to take it in a certain route. And just because at the minute and over the past 2 years, that's what I've been listening to, it tends to go in that sort of direction.
Yeah.
Which I think for our next album, because we've already got quite a few songs that we're looking to record.
Yeah.
I think it will be sort of quite a lot different from the previous album that we released, just because of the influences.
Definitely. They're definitely very different. I feel like New Beginnings is like sort of like indie pop. Like there's a tiny bit of rock there, but it's kind of very just, more pop. And I feel like this new album sort of goes into more of an indie rock style, and it definitely has a bit more like punch. I feel.
That just shows growth though, doesn't it? So like you're saying, at the time of recording your album, you're obviously very into Two Door Cinema Club and those sorts of people, which is funny that you mentioned that, because when I've been listening to the album, that's one of the bands that I've written on, and I've gone very Two Door Cinema Club. These like this, especially in the it's a song called Second Chances. I think it's the last one on the album. There's a guitar melody on there that is so Two Door Cinema Club. It really sort of jumped out at me as like, this is like, I could tell that you were listening, or even maybe sort of like a Vampire Weekend kind of vibe. But yeah, just sort of touching on the album then, because I'm interested to know how you sort of said earlier on that some of the songs on the album are from when you were like 14, 15. Are those songs ones that you've just gone, right, I reckon these should go on the album, or did you have like a band discussion and then develop the song from what they originally were?
I mean, really the album was released just as a way to get something physical out of it, but we actually started recording the album in 2021, and this was when the lineup was kind of completely different. Emily and Lucas weren't sort of even in the picture at this point. We had different guitarists and different singer, and so when we started recording it, it was just to get something out there, because we'd been a band for a good 4 years at this point, and we'd written some originals, we'd played them live we played them at Godiva a few times, I think, on one of the supporting stages, and we were like, we just want to get this out, we want to record it and have it as physical proof that we've written these songs and it's all good. So we didn't really think too much about what songs were going on there, and when we released it, Second Chances especially, like the album overall gained quite a lot of traction, but Second Chances, especially on Spotify, gained a significant amount of traction. Like I think in the first 3 weeks it had 20,000 streams.
Yeah, and you see the last one that was like pretty much written as well, because that was like the one when I joined. You were like, you kind of made that one a few weeks after I joined, like the music part, and they're like, right, can we have some lyrics to it? And we kind of sort of decided that as a vocalist, I will like write most the lyrics. Sometimes, like Lucas and things will help out. I've had for a new song, I know for our new song, for our new album, my brother sat and helped me write some lyrics for one of them. Second Chances, I was like really surprised with the streams we got with that.
Yeah.
Because we released it as a single, and like so quickly it got
noticed.
It got noticed. It got like, it's probably got over 25.
Yeah,
1,000 streams,
yeah.
something like that now, and we're just like, wow.
But yeah, we're a bit blown away by it. But
Yeah.
yeah, the whole second chances thing actually is a really interesting point because the album itself is probably 3 years in the making. And actually, if you think about it, it goes all the way back to 2017. So we finalized recording the album late 2023.
Yeah.
And like Emily said, Second Chances was the last song to be written. And that was written in the summer or in the autumn of 2023.
Yes. I
So
think it was probably like summer because I remember like kind of not like rushing through it, but like I know like you were like, right, we really need lyrics, and like I was like sort of doing a mix of GCSE. I was like, right, I'm trying, and I remember sort of writing it like probably within like an afternoon. Like I'd sort of written some the evening before, and then I was like, oh no, I told you guys I had the lyrics done. So I was like quickly just before like our rehearsal, I was like, I finished it off. So like for that to be like one that like gets loads of traction is crazy.
yeah.
To be fair.
But I'm not sure if you can really tell it or not from the album, but I guess there's songs that I guess I'd split into 3 phases. So I think Second Chances and Nightmare. That's on the album, right? Yeah. Nightmare. They were both recorded when Emily and Lucas had just joined, and then you've got a load of, I'd call them sort of OG songs, which is The Reassuring Sound of No and All Alone. And since we've been called Project Overload, because we haven't always been called Project Overload.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the name is like something that's been new for you guys.
Yeah, so initially right at the start, it was Overload.
Yeah.
And then we changed it to Project Overload. It's another story that I might get into later. But ever since we've been called Project Overload, I think we played The Reassuring Sound of No at almost every single gig that we've played as our original that we wrote. And so this is on the album alongside essentially songs that we came up with 5-6 years afterwards. So yeah, like I said, it was
you can see the progression, lyrically as well. As you
Yeah.
get an older, Reassuring Sound of No
yeah.
is definitely like, a younger song that was written.
Yeah, but yeah. Like I say, we just got all the stuff that we'd written and just put it onto the album, then released it. Saw it did well. I'm like, okay, wow, it's it's time to get serious, basically.
Actually, like sort of get your head down and write some music kind of thing. But no,
Yeah.
it's a great album. Like from what because I've listened to it multiple times, and I'm listening to it, and there's been a couple of times where I sort of get halfway through and I think there's something going on in this album. There's something that's the album's discussing, and I've sort of in my head, and I might be completely wrong here, so please stop me if I'm wrong. But in my head, the way that I've interpreted it is that the first couple of songs, it's like everything's happy in whoever it is that's telling the story's life, and then suddenly something changes, and the music to me starts to go a little bit sort of somber, and it's on like a, and sort of lyrically I feel like it goes a bit not like negative, but something's happened to upset whoever's sort of writing the music, and then the next phase of the album is dealing with that upset, and then the last part of the album is accepting it and moving on.
Yeah.
And I might be completely wrong saying all of that.
To be fair, it's probably like better interpretation than we could have as a song, because we kind of just stuck it like we were kind of ordering it like, right, what do we sort of want people to hear like first and last, like.
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to more sort of the musical aspect, sort of what songs would work well next to each other.
So
You can hear that.
So I guess in the way, if the lyrics match the mood of the song, then I guess that is one way to interpret it. But to be honest, it's not anything that we kind of discussed as a band. Like
we never really sort of said
the album.
that, but that's honestly really good. We might need to start. We might need to start using that.
It was like that.
That was definitely our intention the whole time.
Well, you can hear it definitely. It's a concept album, isn't it? It's telling a story from start to finish. But yeah, that's just the way that and especially because Second Chances is the last song on the album, and it's a very, sort of poppy indie, the melodies are there, the vocal melodies are there. It's like everything that's happened in this album previously has now, it's sort of ended on a happy note.
Yeah.
And as the primary lyric writer, then is like, are you approaching each song with a different sort of message to deliver, or from an experience, or
Well, with like, so I've only written for the New Beginnings album because I joined later. I wrote Nightmare and Second Chances. Nightmare, I kind of just with like they kind of wrote the music first, and it kind of works that way because I know some people like to write the lyrics and then like you write the
yeah, I
music.
was going to
for the
ask you
lyrics.
how you prefer to do it.
They write the music, and sometimes through the music I sort of hear like kind of what melodies to like sort of do with it, and through like the feeling of the song I kind of like get a feeling of what like the lyrics will be or what it will be about, like how it makes me feel or how it makes other people feel. um and also funnily enough like the rhyming words, because
Yeah,
like I know like not all songs have to rhyme, but like sometimes like with the sound of like the guitar, like in Nightmare, like the air sort of rhyme worked really well in like the chorus. For whatever reason it just sort of spoke out to me, and I was just sort of like, Nightmare felt like something, quite sort of angsty, like quite anxious, and I was like thinking, kind of also in that time, like I was kind of the kind of person who kind of makes promises, like wants to like keep everyone happy, and sometimes you make promises you can't keep, and sort of like the pressure of like being able to keep everyone happy and like do things, and then you realize that something you've promised to do has actually come up and you don't want to do it, or just something like that. Like maybe there's something you've committed to and you're like, oh no, like when I committed to this I was like ready, but like now I'm not, or just sort of a song to be like just keep going, and like push through it. And then Second Chances was like kind of based on a personal experience with a relationship that I think quite a few people I know or like others can also relate to, like when you're with someone who isn't necessarily the best or makes you feel like you need to stay with them, and it's kind of like overcoming that and realizing you're not in the wrong, and that you can like get away from that relationship and it doesn't make you a bad person for doing so.
yeah,
And like just, I mean, you could probably like maybe relate it to other things as well, like that one person that you just keep giving them another reason to like, oh, giving them excuses and stuff. But with the new album, I feel like as I've gotten older and had like experiences in life, I feel like obviously I'm not that old yet, but with like the teenage sort of experiences, I feel like you kind of have like a lot to say or like a lot of things you've seen or like witnessed. So I think there's like a couple sort of like not really angry, but more like songs that are just with like frustration with how certain things are in life, but also like with the beauty of life as well, and like good things and like the positive sides. And I've also taken a lot of inspiration with nature and using them as a lot of metaphors, because like I've always been into creative writing and like poetry. So with the newer album, I've tried to sort of delve into that sort of side as well.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like just sort of using comparisons between the two, or like from something that you're
Yeah.
writing about, you sort of interweave
Yeah.
the
So,
nature aspect in there. Oh, that's interesting. So what have you got coming up then? Because you've mentioned a couple of times about a new album.
yes.
Mm.
Um,
I mean, we've got we have enough originals, I'd say, that are musically finished to potentially do an album. Um, obviously we might write some more because it's nice to have a kind of selection of what gets released as an album, what gets maybe we'll do an EP. It's undecided at the minute,
yeah.
but I think we were speaking about possibly recording this album or the songs that we have ready anyway in the summer, maybe splitting it up into a few sessions,
Yeah.
because the kind of mentor that we've had since 2017 and the guy who runs the rehearsal space that we rehearse in is called Mason Lalong. He produced our last album, and so all the equipment and all the stuff that you need to record an album is there, and he's a fantastic producer, and so I think the kind of thing is, we've kind of got that opportunity now in the summer when there's not really that much going on, to kind of lay down some tracks and potentially, I wouldn't give any dates yet, but 2025, I think definitely we'll have an album out then. But yeah, it's just something that we want to do. We want to, well, these tracks are fresh. We want to get them down and get them sorted.
We're kind of like been really excited about these ones. I feel like with some of them, we've sort of some of them have sort of been like the melody or like the lyrics have been not the lyrics, the instrumentation has been sort of thought of in one practice session, and then the next one, if I've managed to find time, because sometimes I get like things happen in life, but if I manage to get lyrics done, we'll like have like I feel like there's one song where we had like 3 sort of sessions like in which we made it, practiced it, and then we performed it like at one of our gigs.
Yes.
Like we've been very quick with these songs. Like once they've like been made and like they're sort of gig ready, we're like, okay, yeah, we really want to play this because it's just so good and we want to like get it out there.
Yeah, I think the thing as well is it's such a big step musically and lyrically from what we were doing before.
It's like
because
great to like sort of play them at gigs. I feel like they're really fun. Like our old songs are still really good, and like like from New Beginnings, like it's still fun to play like our New Beginnings songs. But I think when you've sort of known that you've grown and like you've like changed and you've got these sort of different songs to play, it's just so fun to get out there and be like, we've also got this side to us as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, amazing. You just sort of mentioned a minute ago about having writing the lyrics before the music, or sort of listening to the music and then sort of writing the lyrics. Is there a particular way that you guys do it, or is it different every time?
I mean, I always would say it's music first, then lyrics.
Yeah, it's definitely music first, then lyrics. I think we've got like 5 songs made already, but I'm sitting on some lyrics, and like Tom's always like getting on at me because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get them written, and then things come up, especially with college and stuff.
Yeah,
they do get written eventually.
Just because you said that you're into your creative writing and your poetry and stuff, I'm wondering if you write lyrics or just sort of poetry in general, in your own time, not really thinking about the band.
I think it's hard to, like, I've tried to sort of sit there and write lyrics on my own, but it's kind of, for me anyway, it's kind of hard to, like, when you don't have like a sound or like sort of an inspiration for like a melody, like when I've got like a guitar or like even sometimes the drums or the bass, like depending, like each song there's usually one instrument that I'll pick out and I'll be like, right, I'm gonna like sort of write alongside this, and I feel like it's so much easier to like have a feel for a song, how like the actual instruments make you feel, because then it's like, now I know that like if that's how it makes me feel, I can then write about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there are, I wouldn't say that there's the kind of musical aspect of the songs that are in their finished structure. I'd say it's more of a skeleton, and then the lyrics come along. And I think an example of this is Second Chances, actually. I think the bass at some points in that song actually follows what the lyrics do. And there are other songs where I know the guitar parts have been modified slightly to sort of enhance the lyrics. I think that's not something that we've kind of discussed about. I think that sort of just happens subconsciously.
Naturally do it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as well, like lyrics wise, they sort of fit with the drum beat. Like they sort of go with the melody, but it's kind of the drum beat that they follow instead, which is like cool sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of varies, but yeah, mostly it's been music then lyrics.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about have you experienced sort of writer's block? So if you're like writing your creative writing and your sort of poetry and your lyrics, surely it'll get to a point, or it might have already got to a point where you go, I've got nothing left. And if so, what do you do to get over that?
Well, I've definitely had writer's block, especially with lyrics. I've like been in my room, I've been like sat there, I've like come back from a session, I'm like, I'm ready to go, I'm gonna like listen to the music, write it, and then I've gone, oh, I don't know.
Because you can't force it sometimes, can you?
I kind of just give myself a break away from it. I don't think there's any really like sort of written method. Like people will say you can do this, this, and this, but I think for everyone it's different. And for me personally, I take a break from it, and then sort of wait for a day where I'm like feeling inspired again. I'll give it a listen. I'll sort of every now and then I'll just play the song again. And I'll write down like little notes, like sort of. I jot down like sort of half lines. So like sometimes I'll be writing and you guys will like want to come over and look at what I'm writing. I'm like, please don't, because you're gonna look at this and be like, it's nonsense. Because I'll just have like 10 different random words or like lines that really don't go together, but I just sort of jot it all down, and then sort of at another time where like feeling very clear-headed, I'll look at it and be like, oh, I can see this thing, and then I can write it all together.
Like a jigsaw, you sort of put things together there, aren't you? Yeah. No, that's great. Just sort of going back to what we were saying a minute ago about you know the new album and upcoming things. We've sort of spoken away from this about Godiva Festival. Tell me about all of that, because I know that it was like a Battle of the Bands kind of thing.
Yeah. So we'd played on the side stage of Godiva Festival a couple of times before, while we were still doing the Coventry music kind of band project. But this thing was totally independent of all of that. We had to go up against bands from Coventry and I guess the wider Midlands.
We had to go against adults as well, because you and Callum are over the age of 18.
Yeah. So last year actually we entered the competition, the under 18s category. I mean, I was 18 at the time, so I mean,
everyone else was. You were the one member that was 18 though. Yeah. Everyone else was under, so it kind of outweighed.
There were some bands. There were some dubious-looking 18-year-olds, and the band that won, I'm not convinced all of them were under 18, but
they were good though.
But yeah, we noticed from them that because it's an audience vote,
actually learned their presence was very good though.
Yeah,
I feel like
that is true. Yeah,
to pick up more presents.
Yes,
carry on.
Yes, so that is a good point. Yeah, so from doing it the previous year, we learned that their stage presence was very good, and the fact that they brought a lot of fans was very good, because the fans would obviously vote for them, and the fans actually get 2 votes. So they vote for one band, they get 2 points, and their second band gets 1 point. And we kind of realised that you have to bring the stage presence in order to secure the second vote from all the audience, because everyone who's there is going to vote for the band that they've come to support. So it's the second place vote, which is the one that really matters, the one that separates you from everyone else. And fortunately for both heats, because there were 2 heats this year, we bought a big audience each time, and we really sort of ramped up our stage presence.
Yeah.
And there were some really decent bands there. If we'd have lost to any of them, they would have been worthy winners of.
Genuinely, there were some really good people. I think we made some really good connections through it as well.
Yeah.
And it was also cool because everyone was like a bit older. I think there was like one band that might have been in their 20s, but I think they were like the ones that were closest in age to us.
Yeah.
The youngest ones there. And it was actually really cool to sort of go against people that were like older and more experienced and really good at what they do. And for us to come out like winning, it was quite good, to be fair. It was crazy. I mean, I didn't quite believe it.
No.
Like, we've got like a video somewhere, and I think I was just like that, like, what?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite surreal for sure. And it's a big stage. Like, I've been to Godiva every year for like 10 years, apart from COVID. And it's a big stage, so it's still a little bit surreal now that we're going to be playing on that stage in front of, potentially thousands of people.
I generally don't think it will sink in until I'm actually on that stage, and like just how big it is as well.
Yeah.
Compared to every other stage we've been on, because we're quite used to being on like small stages.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
so much running around room, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, my mum was like, because this is kind of off topic, but my dad randomly bought a treadmill off of eBay. So my mum was like, wow, going to Godiva, you need to start like singing and running on the treadmill to get the stamina up to be able to like be on a stage that big. But yeah.
Yeah, because I mean we're a 5-piece band, and a lot of the stages we play on, like we played
made for 5-piece bands.
Like we played on a stage last weekend in Gloucestershire,
Yes.
as part of the semi-finals for this Lake Fest festival, and it was a sort of thing where we could not move around. We had to bring the stage presence.
No, yeah, I had like a 5 centimeter gap from the drums. I was like trying not to fall into the drums, because Pan had to move the microphone so we could fit like Callum, our bassist, onto the stage like next to Lucas. But then I couldn't move the microphone towards you, and so I was in the middle, and I was like squashed up. So every now and then I tried to go sideways. I know Joe, our drummer, he was like on a chair at the back, and it was like basically falling off the stage, and he was like stressing out, trying not to fall off.
Yeah.
So it was an interesting one.
I mean, it's going to be such a difference, like essentially a month separation from doing that and then playing on this massive stage, right? You can run around if you wanted to.
Be a luxury. We can all run around.
Too much stage.
Yeah.
Too much space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, like talking about sort of playing in these heats with all these other bands, with people who might be more experienced or older or whatever. It's the same token as anything. If you're hanging around with people that are, in air quotes, like better than you, you're only going to learn from them. Like
exactly.
you said about sort of learning stage presence and learning X, Y, and Z. Like it's great for you. Obviously, you'll find your own way as a band and as individual performers, but to be in like a music scene almost with people that you might see regularly when you're doing gigs and stuff, that's going to be invaluable to you as a band.
We also learned with the band that won, I think it was Sonder, like last year.
Yeah.
When we saw their Godiva calling set, they actually had like their Instagram projected, and like that's when we realized they had their Instagram sorted out, because the band has gone through so many different people and changes. There's been about 5 different Instagrams. So I think we kind of all sat down together and like, right, we need to like get really serious now. Like clearly, like these are the bands, they've got great stage presence and they've got their Instagrams and socials sorted out, so we need to do the same. So I feel like through like these heats and stuff, you sort of learn like sort of to how you can improve and what you need to do to like sort of grow as a band, and also like style and stage as well. Like we saw that other bands sort of had like certain outfits and things, so we're like, right, okay, we need to like sort of dress up for it more as well.
Yeah. I mean, our thing at the minute is suits.
Yes.
Is it
at
really
the moment it's like
it's
suits,
so funny that you were going to
like
say that, because the first band that I was in, it was really fashionable to wear like a black shirt with a white checkered tie.
like, yeah, because like we were like well, I feel like I kind of remember having a conversation with you guys. I was like, right, come on, we need to dress up for this. That was quite funny. I felt like I was nagging them, but then like
what gig? I think that was our album launch gig, was the first gig that we actually properly showed up for, and
then since that album launch gig, I saw that you guys could actually like stuff. I was like, everything's setting up and like getting on at them, like, right, for this we need to like for Godiva calling, I was like, right, that's it, you're wearing your suits, you've worn them before, I know you've got them, you need to like look like we mean business.
Because the thing is as well is that if you look like, the audience are going to make a judgment of you before you've even started playing.
Exactly.
So if you look like you know what you're doing, and
or like confident,
and if you look the part, then they'll think better of you than if you kind of just came on in our tracksuits.
There was like this band at the Lake Fest, I think it was Ginger Ale, and I saw that. I was like, I wanted to know where they'd got half their things. So I was like, I wanted to talk to someone and be like, where have you bought this? They had like the cowboy boots and like the jeans, like sort of flared, and like scarves and like denim, but it looked so cool. And I was like,
very 70s.
It was very 70s, but it was done so well, and I was like,
yeah. But sometimes though, it's all the gear, no idea.
They
I mean?
they were really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
went
through.
In that case, then.
No, in that case, they went through. They beat us, but like well deserved.
Yeah. The thing about that as well is actually they did have all the gear, and they actually did have all the ideas. Because the one thing that I came away from that experience last weekend thinking about was we need to focus on our sound a bit more sort of live, because we've had this issue for a few of the last gigs where Lucas's guitar isn't quite loud enough. It's not really cutting through the mix. But these guys, they had their own sound engineer for a start.
Right.
And looking on their Instagram afterwards, I actually found out that they'd toured in France.
Oh,
So they were actually like kind
they're
of
very
big,
good.
Legit.
Yes.
big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they, their sound was amazing. And kind of from that, I sort of thought, well, we need to kind of get our sound, we need to step our sound game up, basically. We need to
Yeah.
figure out what makes the guitar sound like this or sound like that. How do we make the drums cut through more, or the vocals have, the right amount of reverb?
Yes. I think as a singer as well, I need to sort of look more into like what I actually like. Because I remember I got asked once like what sort of effects I like on my voice. I was like, well, I'm not really sure. I don't really know. I was like, yeah, because I've never really like known what sort of effects I like get put on it, like in the mix and stuff. So I was like,
Yeah.
I should probably start looking at what sounds good live and stuff.
Yeah.
Because reverb can be great, but it can also be like too much can really confuse you. Because
Yeah.
if you hear yourself back, it's
From a producer's point of view as well, if you put too much reverb on a
Yeah.
vocal, it just pushes it right.
exactly. So like I like it. Like I think I just kind of said whenever they've asked like, oh, just a tiny bit of reverb, but like I kind of like through
Yeah.
the monitor hear myself. I kind of like how it sounds anyway.
Yeah.
Like I like because I don't want like to have too much done because then it's like I don't really know how to sort of work with that yet. Like with what sort of effects they can add.
Yeah.
I think you'll probably find when you play in these like smaller venues, you might not be able to hear that sort of stuff anyway. But on stage at Godiva,
Exactly. That's
it
what I
might
need
it
to
might be a
learn,
bit
you know?
better.
Yeah.
They'll be asking me, I'm like, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, you just say that just a tiny bit, just a small bit like that. Yeah.
I mean, that is the next step though, like
Yeah.
sound,
Learning.
of the band. Yeah.
But that just comes with time. Like it's
Exactly.
you're not going to know everything on day one. You've got to go out and make mistakes or just sort of learn your craft almost as a band. I'm not saying that you don't, but like it when you, it's just a natural progression of stuff, isn't it? Like you're learning your stage presence, you're learning how you want to look as a band visually, and then the next one will be experimentation with sounds, sort of live and in the studio. But I've just got sort of one more question to ask you both, and I sent you a message on this last week to give you a bit of time to think about it because it's a hard question to answer on the spot. But I'm interested to know, because we've spoken about your influences, but with influences come your top 3 albums or your top 3 songs. It doesn't necessarily have to be albums. So do you want to start with you, Emily? What are your 3?
I think I might let Tom go first because
Less 5 seconds to figure it out.
I'm like very indecisive when it comes to. I've sort of been trying to decide all week, and I'm like still like, oh, I'm not sure. So, but Tom's got the definite album.
Well, yeah. In terms of albums, I'd say my top 3. So it's an album by the post-rock band Explosions in the Sky.
Okay.
It's called The Earth Is Not a Cold Dead Place.
Right.
And it's, all an entirely instrumental album. And it's just the layering of the guitars especially, and the way that the music just works together to sort of replace the lyrics is sort of the thing that I find very interesting, and something that I want to try and replicate if possible, with writing our music. I'd say Tourist History by Tudor Cinema Club has got to be up there, because I just listened to that album kind of on repeat for so long. But my favourite album of all time, which I think I'm going to try and stick with this kind of forever now, is the album Souvlaki by Slowdive.
Okay.
It's a brilliant album. It's my go-to album now. Like, it just works. You put it on and, you just think about the music. You don't think about anything else. And I especially like the context in which it was written, and the whole way that this album kind of personifies, I guess, courage and pushing through. Because when it was released, first of all, it was slated by the producer and
the producer.
Yeah, the producer and the owner of the record label weren't happy with the initial songs that I think it was Neil Halstead brought to them. I think the record producer and the record director actually said, go back, make new songs. We don't like this. And so eventually they released it. It got slated by critics. I think one said that he'd rather drown in a bath of porridge than ever listen to it again. It spent 1 week in the charts, like number 39 or something, and then dropped off. And I remember on the tour that they were that they went on to promote this. Neil House had said in an interview that he looked up at a gig in Coventry, and the only person watching was the cleaner.
Oh, really?
And
we've all been there.
Yeah. And so this was back in the mid-90s when this album was released, and they kind of just faded into obscurity as sort of another band that didn't really amount to much. But then I think 2015 or 2016, it started to get a bit more recognition, and people were retrospectively going back to it and saying, actually, this is a really good album. It was just so before its time.
Yeah.
And so Slowdive, reformed, and they're playing to bigger crowds than they'd ever played like 20 years before. And they've released 2 albums now since. And they got, 8 million, 9 million monthly Spotify listeners. They're going on tours. I went to see them in Birmingham recently. And that kind of just personifies, pushing through, and kind of that the music will kind of cut through whatever the critics or whatever kind of environment it's released in. Like if you're really sort of happy with the music, and if it really sort of speaks to you, then that will cut through everything.
Yeah.
And that's that's kind of the story that I like with that album.
Solid choices. I've got to admit, I don't know them off the top of my head. Two Door Cinema Club.
Yeah.
I have listened to a lot of Two Door Cinema Club, but they're not a band where I can go, that's that album and that's that album. I could tell you it by their cover, but I can't remember what they
do sound very similar.
Yeah, I've been confused before between 2 songs.
Yeah.
When you've been trying to do them in rehearsals and to play them at a gig, I think it's like What You Know, and
that's the one.
The other one, Undercover Martin, and like you'll start playing one, but okay, yeah, I know. I'll start singing it, and you'll be like, no. Wrong one. Yeah, they're quite hard to differentiate between.
Yeah, but I mean, even they've evolved. Their first 2 albums were very similar. Their third album, they experimented with synths, and now their most recent album, which is all right, but it's very synth heavy. It's like if you listened to it and compared it to their early stuff, you wouldn't be able to tell it was the same band. And it's only been 12 years really since the release.
But I find that with the Arctic Monkeys. So they're like they're obviously from sort of where I'm from, and I spoke about it on the previous podcast episode. The first album is very much about going out in Sheffield, and that's sort of what we were doing at the time. Then the second album started to step away from that a little bit, but musically it was the same as the first album. And then the third one was completely different, as was the fourth, as was the fifth. They're all so different eventually, but that's just the natural progression of a band, isn't it? Is you might start off as a 5-piece indie band, but then you might find actually, let's make a couple of tracks that are more synth based, or they've got sort of MIDI drums or that sort of thing. So it's just a progression of experimentation as a band. But solid choices. But Emily, you've had your chance.
Yes,
now. You've had your chance to think about it. So go on then. What are yours?
I feel like I'm gonna get his name wrong. It's Hosea. He's sort of done Take Me to Church. That'll be one that was for him.
I thought it was Hosea.
Hosea, there we go. I don't know. I'm not sure. I probably got it wrong. Probably get some angry people on Instagram going, "You've got the name wrong now." I think his album, which is called Hosea. Is the one. I can't avoid the name. That one's got so many. I like sort of how he has like the way he uses instruments and vocals as well. Like, in his like other songs, like I'm trying to think now of the names. There's like someone new or some falling in love just a little bit every day with someone new. Right. That one. And then there's also one, forgetting the names of the songs now. I was like, oh yeah, this is an album I know. Don't know any of the names, but he's just like with musically and lyrically as well. I mean, as a lyricist, his lyrics are just always so beautiful. One like talks about women, or like sings about love or women, is just one of those that's beautiful. Like the way he describes things, and also just like what he sings about as well. Sort of raising awareness to certain like things and like things like that. And also it's like very like sort of suppose like gospely, I guess, like sort of the sounds as well. I just really enjoy it. Like it's one of those I can just sit there and like listen to it, and like it sort of relaxes you, but also you go through so many different emotions. Like you can be relaxed and then you can be like up and moving about. Like the sort of progression within his songs, and just the songs themselves as well. They'll start off like one way and then you're just sort of all of a sudden you're like happy again, and then you're like crying all in one song, and it's great. I really like his music. And also he's released a new one, Sweet, Too Sweet, like the song. I really enjoy that one, and also I really enjoy singing the chorus, especially to sort of prepare myself to sing on like stage and things, because he does like a little in the sweet bit. Like I've heard covers where people have sort of like done a little like, it's like a voice crack, but it isn't. It's where like you sort of go into your head voice and things, and it's actually really a good way for me to warm up my vocals.
Yeah.
And it's kind of great that he's got a song where I can just sing it as a song I enjoy, and it's going to help me warm up my voice. But yeah, I think he's just very clever, like metaphorically, with his lyrics, and also sometimes they're really open to like interpretation as well. So that would definitely be up there. I guess another one I would say is, I'm going to say Nonsense by Sabrina Carpenter. And it's not really because it's like this great song like Hosea's like, oh yeah, instrumentation things. It's actually because it's just so fun.
Yeah.
It's like one of those where like it's just very fun to listen to, sort of sing along to. It's just nice to sort of have a song that you can just sort of, whenever like I don't know what to listen to, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna stick this on. I just feel like it's one of those songs, like, because sometimes I feel like when you listen to music, sometimes you're going through and I don't really know what I fancy now, going through it, but like I stick Nonsense on, it's like, that's it, yeah, that's fine, I can listen to that, I'm happy with that one. And also just the way she has fun with it, like she uses that one as like her song, like it's sort of given her like sort of loads of notice online as well, because that is the song that you see her everyone posting about, because she does a different outro for every like place she tours. Some of the innuendos aren't necessarily the most PG, but she has fun with it, and it's something that's sort of, if you didn't know her from like her like Disney Channel era and things, and like you're sort of getting to know her, that is something that will like make her stand out to you and be like, oh, like there's this person that does this, it's quite fun. And I think it's actually been a great way for her to sort of get more notice now as well. And also I feel like another one I'd say is Man, I Feel Like a Woman.
Really?
Because I feel like when you're sort of, I've not really done albums, I've done songs, but like when you're sort of in like a down bit, or like you're in like a slump or something, you stick a bit of Man, I Feel Like a Woman on, and you're like, that's it, I'm gonna go out in the world.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone has to say about me, I'm gonna do my own thing. And it's also actually quite uplifting as like a like female as well. I mean, I feel like if you're a man as well, you listen to it, like it's like just so like empowering, and just to be like, go out in the world and like feel good about yourself, and like you can get through this day. I feel like I've actually had the thought to set it as my alarm, because like sometimes when I'm getting up for college, I've got to wake up at 5:30 and I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered. I feel like if I put that on and hear it, I'll be like, yes, ready to seize the day. It's like such a good song to like sort of listen to, dance in your room too as well.
Yeah, they're floor fillers as well at weddings, like those sorts of songs.
Exactly. I think those songs are just sort of like, you know, floor fillers are actually really good songs in themselves. Like,
yeah, I know what you mean.
I feel like some people are like, oh, like everyone likes that song, but it's like, if it's filling the floor, obviously it's got something good about it.
Yeah,
so,
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to that, what's her name? That Sabrina
Carpenter.
So that song that you're talking about, that Nonsense song. So I didn't know that she did Disney or anything like that. But I know which song that you're talking about, and that song stands out to me because there's a moment in it where she says something has to hit the octave.
Yeah, and then she hits the octave. It goes, it's so beautiful.
It is good, that, and there is a proper music theory term for it, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But I love stuff like that.
So
that
it's just,
song stands out to me for that.
I like the lyrics in it as well. They're quite clever with the octave bit. Like obviously she goes to the octave, but there's other ones I can't think right now off the top of my head. But like in her other songs as well, like lyrically she can actually be quite smart with like what she's saying, which is kind of cool. Like it's sort of something as like, you know, again, I look at the lyrics and I'm like, oh, that's like cool. I think with songs, I tend to mostly look more at lyrics as well as the sound. And I feel like if the lyrics sort of speak out for me, or like the way they sort of do it and how clever it is, I definitely like, that's what makes a like sort of good song to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all 6 of those choices, I'd say were solid. The ones that I don't know,
Yeah.
I'll definitely be going to check them out. Especially that instrumental one. That one sounds really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you should check out Explosions in the Sky. They're an awesome band. All their albums are fantastic.
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
also
Will do.
put another album up there, New Beginnings. That is also a very good album. Yeah.
At the top of my
At the
Spotify
top.
playlist at the minute.
If anyone wants to give it a listen, Second Chances is a single that is out as well.
Yeah, definitely do. I would definitely recommend someone to go and listen to that album because it is great. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do next, especially with this new album coming up and at Godiva Festival. But now then, Project Overload. I almost forgot your name then. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much for coming down. I really do appreciate your time and for talking to me about all things music. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
thanks for having us.
It's been great to like talk to you as well and like talk about things. So yeah, it's been really good.
Yep.